All right, Quentin, you are in my first box.
All right, so just use this week to get through a bunch of features for the Weaver, and then Lily was really a great reviewer, and I've gotten most of those reviewed. A couple of them are merged.
I was gonna say I might go and post merge review some, because I think specifically like the DocX one I really wanted to look at and just didn't want to get in your way before you merged it. So
yeah, no problem. Like if you have other thoughts on it, I'm happy to keep working on it some more too if people have ideas. Yeah, so we have. I mean, it's kind of fun to do feature stuff for a while. I mean, obviously you can't just only work on features, especially when they're not substantive. But I'm trying to get it a little bit ready for my students. So we have docx review, just like for validation. That was one feature that got added, which turned out to not be very hard to do. It had some interesting challenges in it. Multiple choice options in the Weaver. So if you wanted to add a pick list, either checklist or radio buttons, you can do that now. And the one that's still being reviewed is sending overflow text to an addendum in the Weaver, which was like the tech stuff was already there. It just hadn't been wired up in the Weaver. So now you can say, some automated PDF that you want to handle the overflow in an addendum, and then it will do that for you. And that's cool. It all works. So there might still be more review stuff to have to be done.
It's very cool. I remember conversations
Very cool.
the summer before last. Oh, it's so weird. None
of those of which amounted to very many lines of code, but it was just I had to be able to sit down and have a break to do it. So.
And is there?
Sorry, I was going to say, the radio buttons and multiple choices was just for you have a text input, but you maybe want to restrict what people are selecting, right? We didn't quite figure out how to set PDF radio buttons yet, right?
Correct. It's not about PDF radio buttons.
Just user interface.
It also doesn't handle hey, you have 10 fields which you want to turn into checkbox options instead of them being unique fields. It doesn't do that. I thought about trying to get in some MVP there, but I think it's just better to leave those as fields that people see in the attachment block and then let them handle it later. Because my shortcut was going to be hey, skip this, it's an option. But then you wouldn't have the attachment filling part wouldn't be there for you. And it just seemed like cost benefit wise, it was the right choice for now. But yeah, that would be a nice way to finish it up. You can group the fields and say they belong to a selector.
I imagine those are all really helpful for the idea of having things that are not court-based forms too. That gives a little more, play in the joints.
I think that's true. Yeah, you're right. For some of the work we were just doing for Suffolk DA's office, for example, they had a lot of pick lists there.
Yeah, and there we're in sort of I'll talk about that when I get to my bit.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with confirmations and such with certain people, right? That probably is a big factor.
That's a big thing, but there's already in anticipation, changes of staff. So actually our point of contact has left or is leaving.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure if that role is being filled. And I'm not sure we will know until the new DA is in place. And a lot of the choices were predicated upon the notion that the office wanted to have a DocAssembly server because they were going to do something with it. So I don't know if that will change their calculus. So there we go. I did that little update right now.
Updated.
I was off headphones for half a second there.
So the DA's office, we had a form that we were getting ready for them, and Quentin helped them set up a DocAssembly server. But the position with which we were working, the individual in that position has left or is in the process of leaving. I'm not sure what the end date was based upon the email I got. And so there's an open question as to whether or not that role will be refilled, especially given that there's likely going to be a new DA shortly. And a lot of the choices that were made, specifically the choice to have a DocAssembly server in the DA's office, was predicated upon the fact there would be someone there who could do something with it. And so So there's a bit of an
I
open
was-
question as to what's going on there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess that, sorry, I heard that last part. I had been looking through some older stuff, and I don't know what, I think we sort of like documate, we sort of just haven't, I know we haven't been talking with them recently, and so I'm assuming that a lot of the stuff we had been talking about, like, just sort of didn't really work out at the time. Does it make sense to like reopen that conversation anytime soon?
Yeah, I
Or-
think on the document conversation, that's definitely like after we do certification, that's
Mhm.
like definitely a loop back and see what's going on there, because they might, especially given that we're now pursuing a much more robust feature set than we originally were thinking,
Mhm.
that might be more attractive to them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking too. The exact same thing. Like, it doesn't make sense to reach out to them again until we've gotten the certification is
Okay.
like at least submitted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
send the lawyer and LHI and A2J off there. Like, just makes sense to wait a couple weeks.
Wait a couple weeks and then we can say, well, wait a couple weeks and then either things blow up in our face and we have to wait another couple weeks, or wait a couple weeks and then we can say, hey, look, here's this cool thing. But Quinton, did you have anything else? I didn't mean to derail.
Oh, no, I mean, I guess we could record this, like, that the court stuff yesterday, that we had a good conversation with some folks around the country doing work with court standards, specifically about like the information you store about a court location, helping people find courts. I think there's like a really concrete to do there, which is to have someone go into the LMSS standard and to see like, hey, are all of the things in place, at least for us to have unique identifiers for each Massachusetts court inside LMSS. Another really great idea from Damien at Fastcase was for us to do some mapping. And I would love to map all of the Tyler case types and subtypes to LMSS codes, because that will really help make this any filing
I think so.
we have usable. Like,
Yeah, I've been thinking about the same thing too, because I've been running into issues where we're either having to directly talk about like there's like the same object is having to serve two different purposes of either trying to be more general taxonomy or just directly here's the Tyler codes, and it would very much help to have some sort of like some sort of
Yeah, that would be great for the
mix
proxy
there.
server, I imagine, because then you could just, that mapping would be great. So yeah, I support
They're
that.
kind of mechanical things to do. I'm wondering if like how quickly we think we might be able to have a student and help with that. It's like a really great project for a student in some ways.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to happen
Would it-
next year. So
Would it help a student to have a coder supporting their efforts? Like, is it gonna be more of a challenge for them to do it alone? Because that is something that I'd be very interested in.
first of all, Michelle, doesn't actually have to be a student. If you're like, hey, I have independent interest in this project, you could totally.
But would I know?
Being a little tedious, so it feels worth paying someone to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
but would
yeah, I
I
think-
know enough to
I'm
match them up?
confused because I would love to do some of this. It is a little tedious, but I also like to do it. But also, I don't have any of the actual knowledge about okay, what does this case mean, and understanding like really any of that stuff.
Like where it could map?
Yeah, it's
Like,
more
how do we
substantive
know?
knowledge someone would need than
Yeah.
coding knowledge. But
Exactly.
having a little familiarity with taxonomy would probably be helpful. So like not having it be a totally foreign idea, like, hey, we have data, we're going to organize it into an ontology or taxonomy, I think would make it faster. But then once you had like that little basis, then it's really just like applying your substantive knowledge to say this field means this thing.
So that's why I was proposing that I, as a person who, or one of us who is, or people who have coding knowledge, could work with a student who I assume would have substantive knowledge. Because I don't know how I would do it alone. Like, I just don't, like, I don't have the substantive knowledge to say what matches up with what, right?
David, this is like really similar to what students doing spot training have been doing, right?
Yeah, in some respects, those students are all gone now though, because of that money went away. That being said, there is more money coming online, and well, we're getting to all my update points before I get to my update. But there's also this. I don't know if you saw I think we talked about it briefly. The STEP program. It's this new pot of money. Alumni donated something for basically students in the university to do internships with like technical groups inside the university. And there's money to pay them for that. And I'm actually, you'll remember originally we sort of were talking about this with the CS department as sort of a way. And I started independent conversations with the person who's administering the STEP money. And we don't have we're at the point where we're scheduling a meeting to talk some more, but it seems like the way they're thinking about it is like they'd like to do like a job listing and fund the job. So instead of like the bigger thing that we were thinking about with the CS department about like getting money to help like something that I think they'd like to get a job listing for a student and then fund that job. So
now, would they want it to be open to an undergraduate student though?
That's what I don't know yet. They reached out to me specifically as someone in the law school because they wanted it to be, they were looking in all of the different schools. Okay. So I suspect they would, that they would be thinking then, based in the law school, that they'd like it to be open to law students. Although it did occur to me that they might also like something to be open to undergrad. But I get the feeling that they probably actually would be happy either way. Okay. And then we also have the Hewlett money. And when that comes on, we'll have some money for students as well. I think we put in, I can't remember, like 15,000 a year or something. I think we anticipated a lot of that being focused at summer work, but we could also think about some positions over the year. And the conversation Quentin and I had yesterday was that we thought one really good position would be like a project manager position that could overlay to fill that role, especially over the year, and sort of help run stuff across the various programs we're working. And Aubrey really proved that position can work very well with the right students in the job. And so that might be a good candidate for the STEP program as sort of a more general bit of funding. I feel like the Hewlett money, we have to sort of make an argument that ties it to the assembly line. And the project manager would be within the assembly line as well, but I don't know. It might be a little freer. But that also might be nice because we traditionally have had thoughts about maybe that role also being open to people in the business school who might have some project management background. And so it depends on exactly how we write the job description, if we want it to be more technical or more administrative, or how we think about it. So, but they have a good amount of money, and I don't know if it would be one position or if we could even ask for multiple positions. So I think for them right now, what I took away was that they're having, I'm not going to say a hard time, but the bottleneck they're at right now is finding faculty or individuals who can actually oversee the positions that would be created by this program. So I think
that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that might be a fruitful bit. But I think the point is, we're at a position where there are at least two funds of money that might go to be able to fund students either during the year or during the summer. And so we can start to think about, if we have a collection of projects like the mapping or something, that would make sense. We should start teeing those up, because I think we can write job descriptions around them.
Yeah, I think the mapping is like a good one, because at least it feels to me like the taxonomy is big enough that like once you've gotten over the setup costs, there's a lot a student can just keep on doing.
Yeah.
And probably getting the courts mapped is not quite that same task. That's much more judgment needed, and then it's done. Mm-hmm. So maybe I should take a day and do that. 7 hours or something might be enough to knock it out.
Yeah.
But that sounds great to me. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a question that we should ask that kind of we raised yesterday was, are the Tyler case types and subtypes something we could start mapping? Like, obviously we can just see, well, how much overlap is there between those in Illinois courts? That's what we have access to on the staging server now. But it's not clear to me what ability we have to do anything with that data other than file something in Illinois courts. This obviously would help us towards that goal, but putting it into a public LMSS might not be something that they're able to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting question as to, I don't think anything would preclude us from making the mapping. I think it's what we do with the mapping.
So like if we set up our own copy of Web Protege, we could obviously do it. Maybe that's the way to start. And then reach out to Tyler once a little further after our certification, say, hey.
Well, technically we were not required to sign any.
We didn't have any NDA or anything?
We didn't have an NDA or anything. There's probably a terms on the login to the SharePoint, but we didn't even have to sign anything for that.
I remember reading somewhere that like something about there's like copyright stuff that we can't openly share some things.
Yeah, so copyright would be imposed regardless of signing anything. And so the question then comes about whether or not we sort of copy and publish. For internal uses for mappings, I think we're very clearly in a fair use scenario. And with the new Google versus Oracle scenario, we're probably even good on the new bit, but we'd want to check before we did anything like that.
Does that imply like if we want to, well, maybe we can figure this out before we would be able to hire a student, and then it's easy.
I think we can figure it out. Yeah.
If we don't feel like we're ready to ask them, we might want to set up our own Web Protege server just so we can get started on it early. Yeah. And then from there, it's easy enough to export it and have, I don't know, maybe Damien won't be free to work on this forever. And once they release LMSS 2.0, they might not be wanting to get more. But
yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need to get in there early.
Like,
yeah.
Have this RDF file, I'm just going to import it. So
I don't know. I think they're very much, it's in their interest to continue expanding and working on it. Whether or not it is particularly Damien who's doing it is an open question, but I think it's in the organization's interest. So I think we can, the reason why we want to do the mapping is because we're making a gamble that they're going to be in it for the long haul. So I think we can operate under that assumption. That's the working assumption. All right. Anything else, Quentin? Okay, I was afraid you're going to mention my other thing that's on my point, and then I have to talk about it too, but I'll get to save it.
You should just say it now so that you can get it. No one else will steal it.
Okay, so so I usually speak last. The Louisiana State Supreme Court has approved the forms that Amanda did for stuff, and they're ready to go. They're like, you can publish them now. And so I talked to Amanda and I'm like, we need to add a terms of service. We need to do, but I shot her that. And so Bryce, you can expect that she's probably going to reach out to you because you need to, right now what's there is the stuff from your branch. So we'll need to
Yes.
merge.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw she merged one of the changes I made to the divorce interview, but I think she also needs to merge the name change, and I should probably reach out to her because there are just a few small things we were talking about that I think you mentioned in that email, like the terms of service and the
and then the API stuff, Google API stuff, and
possibly not renaming, but removing.
Yeah, I think you should
stuff to the lanyap instead of her personal one. So
yeah, I think that those should all happen so that the repo is, the canonical, it's pointing at the canonical repo as opposed to right now it's a repo, a forked repo of your version is the one it's pointing at actually. So we want to get it pointing at the canonical code and then get those little bits. And then the judge actually had one visual design question on the PDFs about things lining up. And Amanda said she would look at that. But once all those things are ready, then we can just, move them to the production server and there's stuff. And it sounds like the court is actually already have in a pipeline a set of more forms they want to do. that's going to then be a question for Amanda and her group and her agreement with the court as to what their engagement looks like. But it means that we've done a large part of our job, which was to set them up with the tools so that they could do it on their own, which is kind of exciting. Like, they have their own DocAssembly server and they have someone who develops DocAssembly stuff, and we're here for help if they need help, but it's like a thing out there in the world that someone else is running. And we don't even have admin access. And Amanda was very happy to get admin access, by the way. Yeah, so that's exciting. So and then the only thing there, and I'll probably do a follow-up next week, Bryce, is with the judge said to hold off on the e-filing integration because he needed to get some other set of approval somewhere for that. But I think we probably could casually reach out to David to give him a heads up on what we think the change might be, so that he can be thinking about that before we go forward. But I can do that, reach out. But otherwise, it's like we're really, really close to really being done with Louisiana, which is, I mean, we're never done because hopefully they're going to be continuing partners, but having met this milestone, there we go. So that's exciting. That was my report. All right, Michelle.
So that was really exciting, really cool news. I did a thing. Oh, my main thing is I don't have access to that document. Like, I tried to.
Oh, okay. It's probably.
But I also thought it was a repository, or am I just supposed to run it through the Weaver and see
it is a
what?
repository. That document was a brief transfer memo that said, here's where all the repositories are. Here's the repository, and here are the files, and here are the this and that.
Oh, good.
So it's probably a consequence. It must have been, as I'm thinking about it, it was shared inside a channel, which is a private channel, and so it probably has the same permissions as that channel. So I will look at that. Also, it seems like the student is has already forked it and has some other repos. So I'm waiting for him to actually get back to me with the new repo address.
Okay.
And that would be guardianship.
Should I be working on the changed version, like whatever the most recent version
that's
is,
probably what we're going to want to do. Once we get a most recent version, you can look at that. But let me get a copy of that document and get it so that when you can see it. I'll see if I can either add the permissions or if I have to reshare. So yeah, well, obviously then you didn't do anything with that. You can't get into the document.
Yeah, sounds good.
Anything else?
I think not. Going at pace. Gonna be, a bit busy this coming week, but then less so, I think.
All right.
Casual Friday.
Yeah, Michael, you're catching a tail end of a little bit of meeting. So we're recording right now, and then we'll be done soon. So if you don't mind, as long as you don't, well, I mean, you don't have to hide your radio if you don't mind being recorded a little.
A little bit of casual recording.
A little casual recording. He probably was waiting to be 7 minutes in, so he knew we weren't going to be recording. So anything else, Michelle?
No, I'm good.
All right, Bryce?
Yes. So was prepping some stuff for most of this week was I was trying to prep and get stuff easy or ready and easy for Louisiana to use. And like David said, that should be all pretty close to squared away at this point. Just need to merge a few PRs. On the Tyler side, there are the three, like I found a few bugs while I was just going through things that were fixed. And as for the three outstanding API points that we still needed to do, one of them, and implicitly a second one that I was having the same issue with, that I don't think I made a separate issue for, but essentially one of them, they reached back and said, we don't can't really help you there. And that was on the return date. And so I'm not sure exactly if we should directly cut our losses or not. But we'll at least, I'm at least for now counting this as we can't really do much. I'm not going to try and spin for more days and figure out oh, there was something that was completely undocumented that we needed to do, sort of stuff. And so, and then whenever we reach out for certification, we'll mention in there that like we've implemented this, but your side is not giving us real code to test with, so we don't know really how it would work in certification. And for the final version, the final thing of the callbacks, I was able to like successfully get a callback from like a client, like a sub client that I stood up and was able to call. So essentially like running on the live server, I was able to call from my computer and act like I'm Tyler calling in with the right methods or like with at least with like the right SOAP signing stuff, and it got through. And I am currently trying to check and make sure Tyler's system can do that, but it seems that they have completely changed it. And like, which is good because it's no longer like forcing me to use Internet Explorer and Silverlight. But the downside is like you can't actually find if they've updated the reviewee side, like if they let you review cases anymore on this new interface. And so I'm reaching out about that right now as we speak. But I'll like, at least now that I have a test version, I can try and test some stuff. But otherwise, we'll have to just sort of, again, cross our fingers. And if I get a useful response from Tyler, then we can go, and that will be the last thing to do. And then we run through all the tests and make sure it's all good before reaching out for certification. And otherwise, we do the same thing we do with the other one of like, we'd love to test this feature, but we literally can't. So that's all I have. All I have updates. So
I think that's, you can't do more than try it out, see what happens, ask for a response, get the I mean, there's not more you can do. So
The slow iteration cycle.
yeah,
Yep.
but now we've done what we need to do, which is that you've said, oh, here's an issue, here it is. They've said, and then we'll say, okay, well, now let's certify, and they'll either say, again, or they'll say, oh, no, we aren't using that feature anymore, or whatever they're going to say. And then, oh, and I'm just a second. Sorry, I just people came in the house. I had to explain that I had just cut my hair in the bathroom, which the recording didn't really need to know, but I haven't swept up yet. All right, well, now the world knows. But doesn't it look nice, huh? Okay. Bryce, any other?
nope, nothing else.